Aboro, Aboye, Abosheshe, and Ekorole to all who is viewing this stream live and who would probably see the recording after. I would like to open by reading an essay IFA. The essay IFA reads as follows. It is taken from A.G. Ogbe. Death held me and left me. Sickness tried me and left me. No one eats tortoise along with its shell. No one eats a ram together with its horn. The shell of the snail is kept after eating its meat. I have survived the evil plans of my enemies. Serious minded people do not listen to the bird singing the songs of woe. Difficulties and problems bring out the best in man. Patience and sacrifice makes the impossible to become possible. Okay, today's stream is basically going to be about planning, budgeting, and ways of saving. Uh, Basically, it is about economic empowerment. As we could recall, for those who saw the last stream, we discussed things like savings, credit union, SUSU. We talk about the 10-person SUSU, which is a business uh, way of raising funds to start and to expand businesses. But today we sort of getting into mainly personal planning, and the issue or the subject for today is going to be budgeting. Um, Most people believe they need more money to meet their expenses, no matter how much income they earn. Now, this is a straight fact. Normally, what you find is persons who have a fixed income tend to spend exactly that amount, or in some cases, some people even overspend. How you plan to and actually spend your money are more important than how much money you have. The following are some signals that may indicate real money problems are approaching. Do any of these apply to you? Do you dip into your savings or borrow to pay current bills? Do you pay only the minimum amount due each month on credit cards or charge accounts? Do you delay payment of some bills you normally would have paid on time? Borrow to pay. Do you borrow to pay for items you use to buy with cash? Do you take out new loans to pay old ones or to get lower monthly payments? Do you know exactly where your money goes? Now, these are all signs that you're probably heading into a financial crunch. So, if any of these apply to you, then maybe you need to, what we say in Trinidad is pinch yourself, right? Now, if you answered yes to all of those things that were mentioned above, there is still hope for you. So you don't have to worry. There are things you can do to get more for your money and to have greater satisfaction in your spending. You must accept the fact that you only have a certain amount of money available to you and that you must live within these limits. In other words, live within your means. Do not hang your hat where your hand can't reach. This is what the old people used to say. You may feel that this is impossible is an impossible task, but it is possible for most people to accomplish. Now, one of the ways of evaluating your spending habits is something that is called the shoebox method. I don't know if any of the viewers may have heard of it. But basically, what you do with the shoebox method is you examine your spending for maybe an entire month. And what you do is every time you spend money and you get your receipt, you put it in your pocket, you take it home and you put it in a shoebox. And then at the end of each week, over that 4 weeks period, or roughly a month, it might be a few more days, right? What you do is you take the bills out and you list all the things that you purchased, and you make up a tally for the entire month. And that would give you an idea of how you actually spend your money. Once you could monitor this, then you would have an idea as to how you utilize your money. Once you know how you utilize your money, then we could now go into this phase of what is called planning. That is deciding how you're going to spend your money instead of just going out there and spending your money in a random sort of a way. All right. Now, in terms of planning your spending, what you want to do is you want to have a realistic spending plan. A plan that would allow you to be able to facilitate all the needs that you have, of course, in the order of priority. Meaning, you're going to have the most important things on the top of the list when you decide to make this plan. One of the things, the objective of the plan, of course, is to be able to save money. What is a recommended figure? What would be a reasonable amount of money for a person to save each month? Well, this will depend largely on what aims and objectives you have. If you're saving to send your children to a college, a university, or school, if you're saving to purchase a house, if you're saving to purchase a car, whatever objectives you may have in mind is going to determine how much you need to save. But normally the recommended amount of savings for each month, outside of having a specific plan, for general savings, what is suggested is between 5 and 10% of your income. Now, this savings, the position of priority should be on the very top of your list. The first thing you should do is you should save that money. Now, if that money is going towards a susu, or if that money is going to be deposited in the credit union, then before you do anything else, when you collect your wage, you do that first. You visit the credit union and you deposit the money into the account. After which, you could go down your list of priority and attend to the bills, because generally most of us have bills which we have to attend to, and you're attending to them on the basis of which bill is most important. All right? Now, having a successful spending plan is very important. A spending plan is otherwise referred to as a budget, right? By now, you know that achieving a successful financial management plan requires that you make some difficult decisions. Here are some of the things that you need to know. The first thing you may need to do, if you have a family, is to gather the entire household together. right? And have a discussion about what needs to happen in order for your family to reach its financial goal. It is very important for everyone affected by the plan to have some say in it. Of course, that's if you want to have happy family members and if you want to avoid quarrels and issues and contention and unhappiness. It would be wise that every person understands what the plan is, why the sacrifice is necessary, and why you are doing what you're doing. Now, in terms of making the plan, what are you going to discuss with your family members? Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to draft up what is called a monthly spending guideline. And in this guideline, what you're basically going to do is you're going to list the various expenses you have in the order of priority, which I've mentioned before. And I mentioned also that the first thing on the top of the list should be your savings, particularly if you have an aim or a plan or an objective to achieve a particular thing. Now, housing, which will include utility taxes and maintenance, would be the thing next to saving. Then you would have food, which is also a very essential thing. And then you would have transportation, clothing and services, healthcare, entertainment, and everything else could fall below that. Now, decide what each person needs to do to help control the family spending. That is one of the things that has to be discussed. Provide every family member with a personal allowance if you can. The amount is not as important as their personal choices in spending this money. Agree within the family that everyone will take turns getting what they want, but everyone must also be willing to give up something. In other words, within the framework of the allowance, everybody must make some sort of sacrifice. The sacrifice mustn't fall more heavily on one member than another member of the family. It's not every month you're going to be able to get everything. And this is something that every member of the family must understand. All right? Another thing that has to be discussed is the importance to learn and to practice sound decision making. Right? In terms of shopping skills and getting the most out of your money. Now, fortunately for us in Trinidad and in the Caribbean, there are a couple of things that we can do to facilitate savings. One of the areas that a lot of money is spent is on food. And having a home garden is always the type of thing that would allow us to not have to spend that extra money at the market on the weekend or during the course of the month. Making certain food products at home also can save us a bit of money. Baking, probably planting fresh seasoning and preparing it, bottling it off, keeping it in the refrigerator would save us spending that extra money in the grocery store, having to buy brand seasoning. Sewing, having a sewing machine and being able to sew clothes for yourself. Because members of our community wear a lot of traditional clothing. We have one or two providers of the service where we could actually purchase traditional clothing. So having the ability to either sew clothes or even to make minor repairs to your own clothes would help you and would allow you to be able to save also. All right. Now, I mentioned the guideline being drafted up, right? But one of the important things is that these guidelines besides being discussed with the family members, should also be written down so that you could actually see the plan that you have. All right. Um, Having it written down in the form of a worksheet, it sort of helps to guide the spending. All right. Making shopping lists is also an important part of planning. If you know you have to go to the grocery, what you do to avoid what is called impulsive spending, which causes a lot of people to spend more than they actually should, is that you make a list of everything that you are actually going to purchase and actually need. All right, rather than just randomly walking down the aisles and just picking stuff up. All right. um Impulsive buying becomes even worse when you go shopping and you're hungry. Yeah? So always make sure before you go grocery shopping that you eat a good home cooked meal before you leave to go into the grocery store. All right. Another part of planning is knowing the exact income that a household has. So adding up the total income, including any funds that you receive in addition to your earning, do not include irregular income, right? Such as overtime and bonuses when calculating your total income. Let it be predictable, measurable income that you would have during the course of the month. Figure out your total fixed expenses such as rent, mortgage, insurance, premium, and car payment. Right? Create what is called a savings emergency fund. Right? That is adequate to cover emergencies and that also achieves special goals. Ideally, your emergency fund will have enough money to cover 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. You know, especially if you have like paying a car note and paying rent. Right? Beside your monthly income that you get from your salary, especially in these sort of unstable time, it is wise to have money set aside. Should any emergency come, should you get injured, should you lose your job, you know, or should your spouse lose their job, you know, and that income that is lost may not allow you to be able to handle all your expenses. At least if you have some money put away, at least until your spouse gets another job or is able to bring in some sort of an income, you would have the money there to supplement your monthly expenses. Estimating how much you need for day-to-day living expenses is also an important thing that must be written down and must be calculated and figured into this spending plan. All right. While these steps are listed in sequence, it likely you may arrive at your financial or your final estimate by considering them as a group. You may need to do some adjusting to the amount in each step until you have what you feel is a satisfactory plan. All right? Meaning that your plan should not be too rigid when you're designing it. You have to exercise some kind of measure of flexibility. You know, you may have to cut a little here, add a little here. You know, we know bills are fixed, so those are things that you cannot really make too much adjustments on, but there are areas where you can adjust, right? Food is one of them, as I mentioned earlier, where you could actually supplement by planting a home garden. Another thing that could be done with food is when you go to the market, you could use what is in season and in abundance, because the things that there are a lot of in the market generally tend to sell a little cheaper than the stuff that is scarce, right? I find personally that following a vegetarian diet, which I don't follow totally, but following a diet where you don't consume lots and lots of meats and that sort of a thing, tend to allow you to save a considerable amount of money. So maybe if you're trying to reduce your budget in the area of food with your planning, you could probably look at reducing your intake of meat. And that is something too that would also serve your health in good stead also. So in terms of trying to plan and reduce the expenses in some area, that is something that could also be considered. All right. So the question is now, so where do you cut expenses to keep the budget balanced? All right. Mentioned there is travel, clothes, entertainment, education. It's up to you. But think about where you are now and where you want to be in 5 to 10 years. And thinking of the future normally sort of helps you put things in perspective. All right. Your long-term plan should reflect the goal that you and your family have decided are the most important. All right. Um, when making your budget, plan for saving first, which I already mentioned. You can grow richer each month if you pay yourself first. All right. Here is an idea you might want to try. Before paying any bill, determine an amount to pay yourself first and maybe 5 or 10% of your paycheck. Okay? This is a different way of looking at how much you save. All right? Because for people, especially for persons who are self-employed and who have small businesses, you tend to want to take all of the money that you make and reinvest it in the business because you want your business to grow. You want your profit margin to be larger in the future, so you tend to put a lot of the money back into the business. Well, that is good, but at the same time, you would want to pay yourself because that is part of the business expense. Okay? And the money that you pay to yourself, of course, you're going to use a part of it to pay your bills and your expenses, your personal expenses. But you can also use a portion of that money for the purpose of savings. Right? Um, Another technique you might try for saving is to empty your change into a coffee can or a jar each day. Right? And at the end of the month, you could roll up the coins and then into a paper sack and deposit it into your account. Sometimes you would be surprised how much money you would actually save each month from the change that you just have around. So a way to add to your savings is also every little change you have. If you have, even I have a little coconut shell that I use, bracelet at the top of the coconut shell, and I would empty all my little change, you see, into it here. This is a very neat way of saving. And this could be added to your monthly savings, right? So that too helps. Now, why the need for me to be discussing something like this with the African community and the Orisha community? Well, we now living in some times that is very difficult, with COVID. We have people losing jobs, and we also have a lot of changes. We have children at home now because of the COVID, where the education process is now via the computer, whether it's tablet, phone, or laptop, desktop. And because children are home all day, they tend to eat a little bit more. Right? You have to decide the meals, the 3 meals, then you have to have snacks to give these children. One of the ways we could save a couple of money with snacks is that we give the children healthy, homemade, or home prepared snacks. Rather than we going and spending all our money purchasing all these commercial products and we do not know what is in them that might actually be harmful to our children. So a very good idea in terms of saving will also be to have home prepared snacks for the children. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit and speak about the importance of using the SUSU or the ISUSU method of saving. Right? And again, I'm going to say what I said in the last stream. When I refer to the SUSU, I'm not speaking about the modern version of the SUSU, but I'm speaking about the traditional ISUSU that has been used by our ancestors. Um, the SUSU generally uh, used to be done by people who knows each other, relatives, members of your family, the extended family, and in some cases, people you work with and people who you socialize with in organizations, such as the ELA, the church, um, some of the community-based organizations also would have savings. Um, Back in the days, a lot of the fraternal organizations, the friendly societies, used to have various forms of savings for their members, right? The friendly societies. Some of them general savings, in some cases holiday savings, and in some cases for transition time, meaning when a person died, they would also have some sort of money set aside for the person's interment, right? So this method of saving, pooling resources together, has been a long-standing tradition for members of our community in this country. Today, of course, a lot of these things are no more because of modernization and education. Also, too largely due to the breakdown in human character, right? Where we have members of our community not being able to trust each other, right? And a lot of this is largely due to the fact that we now live in an organized society where people tend to be a little more competitive with each other. And because of that competitiveness, you find a great amount of mistrust. All right. But if we were to go back to some of the old values that our ancestors used to have, you would find it would be somewhat easier for us to progress collectively as a people. Our empowerment is going to largely depend on our ability to cooperate with each other. Now, even though the subject today was planning and budgeting, I would hope that from the discussions that we've had, that we realize that even in your household, if you decide that you want to save or you want to make a plan or you have an aim or objective that you want to fulfill, it involves every member of the family understanding the plans that are being made, the sacrifices that has to be made in order to achieve the goals. That, in essence, is a true sense of collectivism, even within the family unit, which of course is the first uh, socializing unit for society. So we have to sort of get back to the sense of having trust in each other, the sense of being able to depend on each other for some measure of support, you know, in times of need or in times of achieving some sort of a common objective. So the SUSU, which I described on the last stream, I would still talk about it a little bit. The typical SUSU would incorporate various members of a family. I would use that as an example. Pooling not all of, but some of their resources together. And then the resources, once collected and placed in a pot is given to individual members over a period of cycles, right? And this is something that is done repeatedly. In some cases, um, the person who is responsible for collecting the money has what is called, they collect something called box, right? The box is like a safety mechanism that is used. What it actually is for should there be late payments on the part of anyone who is a member of the group, that money is used to supplement the income that they were supposed to bring in at a particular time. At the end of the susu, normally the person who is responsible for doing all the collection and the distribution of the money, they would normally be rewarded with whatever is collected as the box if they didn't have any real need to utilize that resource, right? And that is basically the stream for today. And I will close off by reading another essay from A.G. Oakley. If one is rich without good character, the wealth belongs to someone else. That which we are after is character. If one is blessed with children without good character, the children belongs to someone else. That which we are after is character. Good character. If one is blessed with houses without good character, the houses belong to someone else. That which we are after is character. Good character. Udabo, and we will meet again when we discuss financial empowerment for the Ifa Orisha community or the African community. Udabo.